So Moscow, Idaho Police Chief Anthony Dahlinger sharing new details about the investigation into the 2022 murder of 4 University of Idaho students. He sat down with our own Fox News contributor Paul Mauro in a Fox and Friends exclusive interview. Take a look.
In 2022, when the task force was formed to investigate the Kohberger case, what was your role at the time?
At the time, I was our services division commander. I was at rank of captain, and that position oversees our investigative unit.
What was the feeling inside the task force as far as whether or not you were going to get there, whether you were going to solve this thing?
Yeah, the feeling, it was palpable. We were all on the same sheet of music. We had the same drive, the same fire in our belly.
So let's go to the night of. All right. It's November 13, 2022.
Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
Shortly after the call came in, and didn't expect to hear what I heard on the other end of the line, that we had not only a homicide, but we had a quadruple homicide. 4 U of I students were killed, and my initial reaction was disbelief.
Heavy crime scene for you guys. Did you go to the scene?
Immediately.
So, Chief, we're here at the site. Obviously, the house is gone. Where was the camera that had that video and audio that ended up being so dispositive?
It was on the front side of that house right there.
This house here?
Yep, on the other side.
Pointing at the intersection?
Correct.
And that's, I would assume, how you knew a white Elantra was something of interest to put out. After he does the 3-point turn that you guys captured on the camera, Bryan Kohberger comes up this driveway and parks in this parking lot, and then essentially surveils the victims from a vantage point up here before making his way down into the back door.
Correct.
And these trees are a lot thinner. And from here, you were looking right down through these trees into the second floor of the home. And those sliding glass doors that were not locked.
Correct. We did have information, obviously, at the onset that we thought he'd come in and out from the back door.
Right.
We had the back door was ajar when we arrived. Dylan's testimony about seeing him heading in the direction of the back door. So that obviously led us to this area. Now, one thing that we do know about this area is vehicularly, there's only one way in, one way out. We had members from every agency out here on foot canvassing every square inch that we possibly could for days, checking every single home for any kind of camera system, talking to anybody who we could get a hold of to see if they were around or if they heard anything, saw anything that night. Starting this investigation from the ground up, and it was a whodunit.
Were you guys aware inside the task force of the intense media interest in this and maybe some of the skepticism that began to develop whether or not you'd get a solve?
Well, that was one part of this investigation that we certainly weren't ready for, or didn't think it was going to happen. None of us thought that this would turn into an international media event, and it caught us off guard.
There's a lot of speculation online and elsewhere regarding what occurred in the house. What did you find when you got there?
Upon arrival, the initial officers found Zaina and Ethan in Zaina's bedroom on the 2nd floor, and then on the 3rd floor in Maddie's room were Maddie and Kaylee.
Why do you think he did not attack Dylan?
Again, that's just pure speculation. We just don't know.
Did he see her, definitely?
From her recollection, if I recall, she did say that they looked at each other.
Their eyeballs met.
Correct.
And yet he walks right by.
Correct.
There's all this speculation. Why didn't she call 911? Am I wrong in saying that even had she called 911, there was likely nothing that was going to be able to be done for the victims?
That's correct.
Dylan gives the description, and it's a pretty good description. It ends up being important, I believe. Body size, shape, body type, bushy eyebrows, balaclava. Was her description not an important piece of the puzzle?
Certainly was. Yeah, it was helpful. And then once we identified the suspect, those details that she was able to give did match.
There's some recent reporting that Kohberger was heard by Dylan literally saying Kaylee's name during the attack. That would argue, obviously, that he knew who was in the house by name and that there had to be some kind of a previous contact. Is that accurate? Did the task force hear this?
Not that I can recall. I'm not quite sure where they got that report, but that doesn't seem accurate to me.
So you don't remember hearing anything about him saying the name of Kaylee or any of the girls?
Correct. The only thing that I believe was reported was that he said something. Someone heard a voice say something along the lines of, "It's okay, I'm here to help you."
Why this house? Why these girls? What do you? Any theories from the task force?
No, we weren't able to track down any connection.
None whatsoever.
None.
Including online.
Correct. Now, our investigators dug very deeply into social media and all of the potential avenues and all of the tips that we got pointing towards that, and were never able to establish a connection. We did find, once we got his devices, that he had been routinely wiping them and using programs to do such. Right. But in all of our other dives into all of the social media of everybody involved, we weren't able to find any kind of a connection. Everybody wants to know. Everybody wants to know why. Why this house? Why these kids? And we just don't have that information, and I don't think we ever will.
All right. Let's bring in Fox News contributor Paul Mauro. So, Paul, we spent many days out there. I kind of got chills as you were walking the crime scene. What did you learn new?
Well, a lot of what was in that package were the key questions I think a lot of us had interest in, especially the idea of why that house and why these girls. And, you know, it may not be a very satisfying answer, but the task force simply could not find a connection.
That's stunning.
Stunning. And he poured a lot of water on this idea, as you heard, that the perpetrator, Kohberger, said Kaylee's name. And that had been a key fact that had emerged relatively recently that seemed to indicate, okay, there was a targeted attack. And remember that word, targeted, when the case first broke. We were all very fixated on it. He says absolutely not. Nothing in the apartment. We went into details of what was obtained in the apartment. There's some reporting that they had gotten some blood samples in the apartment that he was living in Pullman, also washed out. The chief says that was nothing. And they just couldn't find any connection. He's telling me that, you know, he did have the ability to wipe his devices, but generally that still leaves a footprint.
Right.
And as you and I discussed when you and I were out there, he wasn't as clever as he thought.
Right, he thought he was, but he wasn't.
That's right. So nonetheless, they could not find that connection somehow or other. He twigged to that house, and you and I walked that exact location, and it just jumps out at you that you could surveil the house through those trees. The trees were a lot thinner in November. He could see in, and so the house might have had something to do with it, but pure speculation.
Paul, did you get, I mean, we're learning more information about the phone calls he made with his parents, especially the mom.
Right.
Were they ever on the radar at all, despite the DNA that ultimately connected to the father?
No, apparently not. I asked him about that. Here's a key thing that was also learned. The timeline of when he became the likely suspect. It was after he left town. There's a lot of reporting out there that they were tailing him. The FBI lost him. They had the 2 car stops.
That's right.
The chief says it's
none
all
of that
nonsense. He was there. His role was essentially chief of detectives, as you'd call it here in New York. He was over the detectives, so he's going to know. He tells me they didn't have the name until he had left town with his father, because I asked him, did they do the car stops to see who he was in the car with? Because my theory had always been the car stops couldn't have been an accident. They might have seen a head in the car and said, oh, God, he's going to, you know, he might do somebody else. He says, absolutely not. They never had the name. There was no tail. They would never have let him leave town. They would have put a GPS in the car at the very least. There's all kinds of things they would have done they didn't do. The chief takes you through all of it. It was fascinating, but it clarifies, I think, once and for all, a lot of what happened and answers a lot of the questions.
We're going to have more of that interview with the chief, and you're going to be able to watch the full interview on Fox Nation. That's going to be available later today.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.